I'm so delighted to offer this intensive, Apsara, the Celestial Custodian of Pleasure. I think for women to get in touch with pleasure, sensuality, beauty, desire, sensuousness, in their consciousness, in their being, in their bodies, is never more important than in these times. In so many parts of the world, we have been shut down and we have been disconnected from the usual ways in which we find happiness or pleasure, whether it's traveling or going on a holiday, meeting friends. And in some ways, the goddess invitation in this moment to come in touch with that intrinsic pleasure within you is very, very timely. It is also timely for another reason, and this is because for women, pleasure, desire, beauty, sensuality, these have been mediated by patriarchy for centuries. And women share with me, when I work with them in my classes or in my individual program, they share with me that they feel shame, embarrassment, when they realize how disconnected they are from that experience of pleasure, that embodied experience of beauty, their own pleasure, their own desire and sensuality. And also in our culture, doesn't matter where we are in the world, pleasure and beauty is always associated with youth, with particular ways of looking and being. And yet, in the ancient goddess tradition, the custodians of pleasure, the Apsaras, were mature women. There are descriptions which talk about these women as having 3 lines in their neck, and the fact that these women have to have had an experience of life, that they have to know life, that they have to be the masters of the 64 different arts, which is about aesthetics, beauty, because aesthetics is the dynamics of pleasure and beauty, and that is why dance was the original practice of pleasure. And so it speaks to women of certain maturity, certain wisdom, certain life experience, and it's not just about the externalities in any way, shape or form. And in that same manner, this pleasure is not conditional. It is not about doing it to please someone. It is not dependent on getting something, on consuming something, on some set of external circumstances, but it is completely independent because it is an intrinsic characteristic of consciousness or the divine feminine. In the Indian tradition, it is said that everything that is manifest, our bodies, the nature, things around us, they all are there because it's pleasure, because it's pleasurable. And if we don't connect with that innate drive of nature, of reality, of consciousness, we actually, in any real sense, we really cannot connect to the pleasure that infuses all of life. In fact, in the Indian spiritual tradition, it is said that pleasure is the most powerful elemental force. So it's an elemental force like the wind, rains, a volcanic eruption, but it is also the most powerful elemental force. It's more powerful than the mind. It doesn't come from the mind. It is not sourced from the mind. It is something far beyond the mind. And so when we connect with pleasure in this way, it unleashes enormous amounts of energy that is about beauty, compassion, love, aesthetics. In any true way, if we want to feel compassion and love, it starts with connecting with pleasure, with beauty, with sensuality, sensuousness. That is the dancing body. And this is what the Apsaras held. The Apsaras were ancient dancers. They're called celestial dancers because their tradition was revealed. It was not created by the mind. It was not a man-made tradition. It was a tradition that they revealed in their bodies. And it was a sacred tradition that held at its heart how to connect with pleasure and beauty. And through that connection, you call the goddess consciousness, you call the goddess, the goddess descends in your body through that pleasure, that beauty and sensuality. I absolutely love this practice of Apsaras. For me, it brings such pleasure and joy. And in these times when there is so much anguish, there is so much fear, there is so much anxiety all around the world, that I really invite you from my heart to get in touch with the simplicity, but the depth and the expansive energy of pleasure and beauty in your body through the dance. And through that, I hope you will connect with pleasure that is the divinity in the goddess. I look forward to your company in this intensive.